issued in their respective countries to drive in South Africa. We also took note of a similar blockade on the N3 near Montrose in the Free State yesterday, with similar demands to those we addressed in the Eastern Cape. While long-term interventions have been put in place, we have committed to the following actions to arrest the illegal conduct. In April 2021, we published an amendment to the Road Traffic Act regulations, which incorporates a provision that a professional driving permit issued by a foreign country will only be applicable to a vehicle registered in that country. Once this regulation comes into effect, a foreign national will therefore not be permitted to drive a South African registered truck using a foreign professional driving permit. The amendment to the regulations are now before Parliament for comment as required by law, and we anticipate to publish amended regulations by the end of November 2021. With regard to transport, this is the main issue that the truck drivers in South Africa are actually raising. And the process of that is now before Parliament, and we're looking at finalizing this before November 2021. Enhance existing joint law enforcement operations between the South African Police Service, the Department of Labour, the Department of Home Affairs, and the Road Traffic Management Corporation. Strengthen the process of validation and verification of immigration documents, work permits, and foreign driver's licenses. In the case of driver's licenses, a synchronized process between countries is proposed. This will ensure that operators are accorded the same treatment in the dispatching and receiving countries. Our National Road Traffic Act requires that foreign operators should make use of an operator permit card. The rationale for such a provision is to enable government to manage situations where an operator does not follow the relevant laws in South Africa. I must hasten, as I conclude, to thank the drivers for the peaceful manner in which they conducted their protest. We have invited their leaders to sit around the table in order for them to have a better appreciation of the measures we are putting in place in addressing their demands. And we have committed ourselves to a 7 days period, which our teams will work with them, because there was a lot of disgruntlement with regard to time frames. And obviously, because there is an election and all of that, one of the sins of incumbency that we are confronted with is that people make demands to bargain and drive the envelope to ensure that what they are demanding and what they want is actually met. And nonetheless, we have understood each other, not in political terms, in terms of the issues I've outlined. So I'll give over to Minister Nxesi to deal with matters that are related to labor and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister Mbalula, Minister Mtswaleti, the officials and members of the media. Just as an addition to what Minister Mbalula has said, and also specific issues which are facing us as the Department of Employment and Labour, we have noted the truck drivers' roadblocks with concern, of course, as we know the effect this has on the economy, the delay of the essential goods and services across the country and throughout our SADC borders. We are equally aware of the plight of unemployment and the effects of COVID-19 to jobs and livelihood. We've had an open line with the Bargaining Council of the Road Freight and Logistics, as well as with the leadership of the truck drivers associations, which are outside the Bargaining Council. We had acted with the speed in developing policy frameworks that are responsive to the outcry of prioritizing South African citizens in jobs that do not require scarce skills. The labour migration policy and the employment policy have been developed, and they will be consulted across government at the level of NETLEC, the social partners, and to the public in due course. Just to add some perspective to this, the road freight industry employs a total of 103,000 employees, 8,500 of which are foreign nationals, which is 8% of the total road freight industry employees. That's the statistics which we have. We know that this might change any time, or it has changed. We, however, note that there are employers within this sector who continue to employ undocumented foreign nationals, and the existence of rogue employers who seek to exploit vulnerable foreign workers. We urge those employers to refrain from these practices, as we view this as economic sabotage and their undermining of our labour migration laws. From the side of the department, we have taken the following measures. First, on the inspection and enforcement. Our labour inspectors continue to participate and coordinate the bleach inspections, as they will intensify these inspections across the country. The inspections, the roadblocks and patrols have resulted in arrests, in fines and confiscation when non-compliance has been detected. A decision was taken that coordinated interventions should be located at provincial level or provincial governments by the MECs of Transport and Security. And we know that in KZN, in Mpumalanga, and Eastern Cape, these have been active in undertaking inspections. We hope that other provinces are going to follow suit. It also should be noted that the Bargaining Council for the Road Freight and Logistics sector also plays a role in ensuring compliance with standards of employment in the sector. The other initiative is engaging parties in the road freight and logistics sector. Government has been engaging all stakeholders within the industry to identify and agree on key concerns, root causes, and to establish appropriate interventions and find long-standing solutions or long-lasting solutions. We established a national forum that included the 4 government departments, DEL, DOT, DHA, and SABC, the Association of the Truck Drivers Forum, the National Truck Drivers Forum, the Owner Truck Drivers, the African Diaspora Truck Drivers Association, and the Road Freight Bargaining Council. We have this national forum where we're dealing with these issues. Some of the issues are bargainables, but some of them are non-bargainables. They are policy issues. So given the nature of the issues that were emerging from the forum, the President of the country also extended the composition to 12 departments to address a range of cross-cutting issues. The President also extended the establishment of the provincial transportation forums, and these forums have enabled government to coordinate its migration interventions, keeping the stakeholders within the industry informed on our interventions and keeping all of us abreast on the developments across the provinces. And then we will continue to intervene these forums and also ensure that legitimate representatives attend these meetings and are also accountable in implementing all the decisions that are taken in these forums. The department has also this year engaged with the African Diaspora Truck Drivers and Allied Workers Union as to the requirements for the registration and trade union. And it must be noted here that the Labour Relations Act does not discriminate against foreign nationals, but just like any other organization, they must meet the requirements of the law for registration. It's also important to mention that the Road Freight Bargaining Council's main collective agreement extended to the non-parties as gazetted by the Minister of Labour does not discriminate against the foreign nationals. On regulation of labour migration, in the longer term, the Department of Employment and Labour, together with the Department of Home Affairs, we are the co-chairs in that forum of that inter-ministerial committee. We have been leading that team to review current policy and legislation on labour migration and employment of foreign nationals. This seeks to strike a balance between the South African population's expectation regarding accessibility to work for South Africans, given worsening unemployment, and a perception that undocumented foreigners are distorting labour market access. And we emphasize that a perception. But be that as it may, we have to deal with that perception. We have to engage the people who are raising those issues. South Africa's labour market needs, in particular, the need for critical skills not locally available. Minister Mtswaledi will be able to talk to that. The protection of the migrant workers and their families in accordance with international standards and guidelines. Remember, we are members of the ILO, we are members of the UN. We've signed a number of international obligations and in relation to this, which we must respect, protecting foreign nationals, protecting refugees and so on. It's part of our obligation. So you must just remember that South Africa, we are part and parcel of the global village and participate in almost all these international forums. So we have to respect that. There's also regional integration and cooperation imperatives, which we also have to respect. So as we're dealing with this in a balanced way, we must also respect those. And remember also, we are having a human rights-based constitution which respects the rights of all. Currently, the only provision in the employment laws regulating employment of foreign nationals is that which prohibits any employer to employ any foreign national without the necessary work visas as outlined in the Immigration Act, which is, of course, found in Section 8 and 9 of the Employment Services Act. All other existing labor laws apply equally to citizens and all foreign nationals. These provisions were identified as inadequate. So the Department of Employment and Labour has been working very hard, round the clock, to conclude a national labour migration policy that is going to introduce quotas on a number of foreign nationals with the correct work visas that can be employed in the various sectors. Remember, this issue is in the various sectors. We've identified this problem in agriculture, in the farms. We've identified the problem in the security. We've identified it in the hospitality industry, restaurants and hotels. So, and we are seeing it starting to creep in the retail sector, in many of the big supermarkets and so on. So we need, therefore, to start talking about the quotas once Cabinet has approved our proposals for public comment. So the policy and proposed employment services amendment bill to give effect to these policies we're putting, they are currently in their last stages of approval at the Cabinet level before being released for public consultation and NEDLEC processes. This is necessary and prescribed for us to arrive at a proper legal instrument that is aligned to our Constitution and other international treaties on migration. There are no shortcuts. Thank you very much. Sorry?
Thank you, Minister Fikile.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I want to answer specifically two issues. The first one being the issue of critical skills, whether in the trucking industry there are critical skills for which a company has got permission to import people from other countries. As you are aware, when you do that, you first obtain a certificate from the Department of Labor, which confirms that indeed there's no South African who has got such skills. And secondly, you come to the Department of Home Affairs, which then gives you a license to import people from other countries. But for the Department of Home Affairs to do that, they must look at the critical skills list, which is usually developed by the Department of Higher Education, Science and Technology, and given to us. The present list that exists is 4 years old. For the past 4 years, we've been in the process of doing a current list. It is now with NETLEC. On our side, we've finished, but we are unable to publish it because NETLEC, which consists, as you know, of business, labor, and community, has still not finalized their consultation about it, and we are itching every day for them to complete so that we can publish the skills list. But I want to assure you that even in the present one and even in the coming one, we don't envisage, at least in the present one, these skills like driving and all that are not on the list of critical skills. Definitely not. And we do not foresee a situation where even in the new one there will be. But I just wanted to confirm to you that if there is such a critical skills list, which is a critical skills that is wanted in the truck industry, there have to be applications. And we convey this message clearly to truck owners when we met in Durban as the three ministers, together with the Minister of Police, because there were some trucking companies that made the claim of critical skills. And we told them that no, we are not challenging them, but they must apply and show us the certificate that have been given this certificate. You don't just wake up and say, I want the driver is a critical skills and I go and acquire them somewhere. You've got to follow the rules. The second thing I want to deal with is the issue of porous borders, which I know you are already going to ask me about it. We have never shied away from this problem about South Africa's borders being porous, and we are not hiding from it. As you know, we've been working over the past 10 years, rather Parliament has been working over the past 10 years to come with the BMA Act, which has been passed. And as I'm speaking to you, the first ever Commissioner of Borders in South Africa is going to report as a BMA Commissioner on the 1st of November, Dr. Nakambe Masiapato, and there will be a Deputy Commissioner for Operations, who is Major General David Chilembe. Both of them are reporting next week for duty, meaning the new era in South Africa whereby we no longer have only the Commissioner of Police, but we also have got the Commissioner whose job is our borders. That era is starting next week, and they will do the rest of the work. Now, we did not fold our arms, ladies and gentlemen, and say because we are waiting for the Commissioner of Borders or the Border Management Authority, then we don't do anything. The immigration officers do conduct operations to make sure that the law is complied with. In this particular instance of Middelburg, yesterday, when a joint operation was conducted, 88 truck drivers were inspected, out of which 11 were found to be foreign nationals, and 2 were found to be having no permits or documents. And we are in the process, of course, of following normal procedures in deporting them. Now, these figures should not really surprise you. Minister Nxesi mentioned something about the perception, whether the fact that it's foreign nationals who are taking job is a perception or not. I will give you figures, you will decide whether it's a perception or not. I'll give you figures because figures don't lie. In the financial year, starting April 2020, finishing in May 2021, the immigration officials conducted 23 operations on our roads throughout the country. And during those 23 operations, they inspected 700 trucks. Out of these 700 trucks, 166 were driven by foreign nationals. And out of that 166 foreign nationals who were driving those trucks, 79 are on the ZEP or the Zimbabwe exemption permit, which means they are documented. 38 were on a visitor's visa, which means they are documented. Only 28 were found to be undocumented, and the rest are SADC drivers. I am mentioning these figures I'm mentioning these figures, ladies and gentlemen, because quite often, there's misunderstanding in the public, even in the media, about the issue of undocumentation. Mostly when people say somebody is undocumented, they mean when a person doesn't have a South African ID or South African passport or South African birth certificate. That is what they regard as documented, which is wrong in terms of the Immigration Refugee Act. When you arrive at the borders and of a country like South Africa, which is a signatory to the United Nations Convention of 1951, when you arrive there and say, I'm an asylum seeker, I'm running away from my country, in terms of international law, you should be allowed in, whether you are coming in illegally without any document or not. You are allowed in, but you are immediately given a Section 23 certificate. Now, that Section 23 certificate is documentation. It says you are allowed in the country. We know you have got no document, no passport, nothing, no visa, nothing, but you are allowed. But you are given 5 days to appear at the nearest refugee reception center. And we have got 5 of such refugee reception centers. When you arrive there and you say, I'm an asylum seeker, you are then given a Section 22 permit, which says you are in the country to look for asylum. Yes, you did not come with any document, but we are giving you this permit, which is your documentation for the next 3 to 6 months. And you must keep on renewing it until final results. If you get successful, that indeed you deserve in terms of the law to international protection under South Africa, meaning you are a refugee. You are then given a Section 24 permit. That also is documentation. So all these various things are documentation, and including the Zimbabwe exemption permit, which was issued from 2008 when the South African immigration services were overrun by Zimbabwe's people running here when Zimbabwe's economy collapsed. Now, all those, we regard them as official documentation. So in this 12-month period, which I've mentioned, the number of undocumented people which were found in 23 road operations were 28. And that's the number that we dealt with. And you deal with them by sending them to Lindela Repatriation Center and deport them out of the country. And we are hoping once the Border Management Authority comes into operation, very few people will be coming in illegally. Then there will be the issue of corruption. What about those who come because of corruption? We have established an anti-corruption unit, which is doing work almost every day, even at the borders. I can assure you there are people who are looking at who we think must be arrested. But you know, the issue of arrest a person for criminal offense at the borders is not done by Home Affairs only. We have got our partners in the law enforcement. We are busy discussing with them, but we have already identified the number of people. I won't tell you in which border who need to be arrested, and they are Home Affairs officials. As soon as processes are over between us and law enforcement agencies, they will definitely be arrested. So this is what we are doing about the issue of porous borders in the country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister Motsoaledi. Welcome, Minister Zulu. You are right, Minister, at a point where we're going to take questions of the media. I don't know, Minister, if you want to make a comment.
I know my colleagues have covered everything.
She will take the questions.
Thank you, ministers. Members of the media, I will then allow you to pose questions. When you ask your questions, please state your name and the media house you are representing. Any questions?
Covered.
Very clear.
Okay, there's a hand. Is that the only hand? Looks like it's the only hand, Minister.
My name is Catherine Child. I'm from Business Day. Could you just explain a little bit more about your policy to have limits on how many foreign nationals are employed in trucking and restaurants and hotels? And is that legal to do that?
We have indicated that to be able to put such quotas, you need some legislative changes. Or for it to be legal, you need to do that. We've engaged a lot of international experts from the ILO, human rights lawyers, constitutional lawyers, and labor experts in this particular field to ensure that whatever we do, as and when we arrive at that stage, we have something which is legal and constitutionally compliant.
If I may,
Yes.
Catherine, you might realize or you might remember that this issue about jobs and quotas and foreign nationals was debated in Parliament during one of the State of the Nation addresses directed to the President. The President then announced that he will appoint an interministerial committee on migration to look at those issues. And that interministerial committee is chaired by Minister Nxesi, co-chaired with me. One of the things that ministerial committee did is to look exactly what you're saying, because even the former Minister of Finance mentioned it in one budget speech about quotas. He even made a proposal and say, what about 40, 60 and all that? But we found that there's no legislation covering for that. That means there's no law that allowed the Minister of Labour or any other minister to go to a restaurant or trucking company or any industry and say you can only hire so many foreign nationals. That's when then we started this consultation is talking about to develop a bill which is far advanced and is going to go to Parliament very soon, because we can't just act out of the law. People confuse it with a quota on a foreign national who comes here to establish a business. And speaking under correction, Minister of Labour, in my recollection, only when you come here to establish a business or industry and you are from another country, you are allowed only 40% people you come with. The others, which are 60%, must be South African. Must be South African. But if you are a South African, you start a business, there is no law that restricts you how many foreign nationals you can hire. And that is the weakness which we are trying to correct. And we've been sitting on it. That's why we have to consult internationally to make it legal, because we can't act out of the law. And as soon as that bill is ready, it will go to Parliament. They will debate it and pass into law if they agree with us.
Any other questions on the Secretary? Any other hands? Okay, please, you can proceed. You want to make a follow-up, Captain?
No, you can go
After him, yeah.
Good day, Ministers. Offense from Caxton. One of the assumptions we have is that foreign nationals are paid salaries which are a bit lower, which then forces people from South Africa to also get paid those same salaries. Is that an issue which is going to be dealt with if that's true as well?
Certainly, this practice you are talking about is very rife. In fact, that's why I was saying in my statement, this employment of the foreign national is distorting the labor market, in the sense that You have minimum wages, you have the various laws in this particular country. You have various laws in this particular country which must be respected. But unfortunately, these employers, they employ the foreign nationals not because they love them. They employ them in order to undermine the labor standards. They employ them because they know they are very desperate. They are ready to take anything. Even if it means the rate is going at 50 rand, they can employ them at 5 rand. And they won't give any conditions. They can employ them from 6 to 12 midnight. That's what we are seeing. These are the issues which we are dealing with through our inspectors. We must expose. But because they are desperate, some of them are running away from instability in their countries. They are ready to take anything. So indeed, this is distorting the labor market in the country. That's why they prefer them.
From our side as Home Affairs, we are envisaging, and I hope I'm lobbying Minister Nxesi here, we are envisaging that in this new bill, the penalty to employers must be very steep, very, very steep, if you do something like that. Because firstly, you are exploiting another human being, but secondly, you are causing big problems of illegal immigration to the country. But thirdly, you are distorting the labor market, as he's saying. In other words, you are rendering all the laws of the country irrelevant by that practice. So we would like a situation where when we meet such an employer, the sanction must be extremely deep, not just a small fine and all that, because many of them will have money. They will continue doing the practice, knowing very well that they'll pay a fine. So for me, Minister Nxesi, I will demand a jail term, if possible, a lengthy jail term for such an employer.
Thank you, Minister. You had a follow-up question?
Just a follow-up question. As I understand it, Mozambican and Zimbabwean drivers are allowed to work here and should be paid the same under a previous agreement. So if you're here legally and you're foreign and you're employed, what is it that the protesting truck drivers want you to do? I mean, many of the drivers are here legally, as you very clearly pointed out.
Well, you were seeing visuals there where Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula, flanked by the likes of Minister of Labour Nxesi and Minister of Home Affairs, briefing the media there on the transport strike. That is it from the On.